Okay, good afternoon. We're back with Second Chronicles chapter 23. Revolt against Athaliah. In the 11th year of Athaliah's reign, Jehoiada the priest decided to act. He got up his courage and made a pact with the 5 army commanders: Azariah, son of Jehoram, Ishmael, son of Jehonan, Zeriah, son of Obed, Messiah, son of Idaiah, and Elishaphat, son of Zikri. These men traveled secretly throughout Judea and summoned the Levites and clan leaders of Judea's towns to come to Jerusalem. They all gathered at the temple of the god, where they made a covenant with Joash, the young king. Joiada said to them, "The time has come for the king's son to reign. The Lord has promised that a descendant of David will be our king. This is what you must do. When the priests and Levites come on duty on the Sabbath, the third of them will serve as gatekeepers. Another third will go to the royal palace, and the final third will be at the foundation gate. Everyone should stay in the courtyards of the Lord's temple. Remember, only the priests and Levites on duty may enter the temple of the Lord, for they are set apart as holy. The rest of the people must obey the Lord's instructions and stay outside. You Levites, form a bodyguard for the king and keep your weapons in hand. Any unauthorized person who enters the temple must be killed. Stay right beside the king at all times." So the Levites and the people did everything just as Joiada said. The priest ordered. The commanders took charge of the men reporting for duty that Sabbath, as well as those who were going off duty. Joiada the priest did not let anyone go home after their shift ended. Then Joiada supplied the commanders with the spears and shields that had once belonged to King David and were stored in the temple of the god. He stationed the guards around the king with their weapons ready. They formed a line from the south side of the temple around to the north side and all around the altar. Then Joiada and his sons brought out Joash, the king's son, and placed the crown on his head. They presented Joash with a copy of God's laws and proclaimed him king. Then they anointed him, and everyone shouted, "Long live the king!" The death of Athaliah. When Athaliah heard the noise of the people running and the shouts of praise to the king, he hurried to the Lord's temple to see what was happening. And she hurried to the Lord's temple to see what was happening. And she saw the newly crowned king standing in his place of authority by the pillar at the temple entrance. The officers and trumpeters were surrounding him, and the people from all over the land were rejoicing and blowing trumpets. The singers with musical instruments were leading the people in a great celebration. When Athaliah saw this, she tore her clothes in despair and shouted, "Treason! Treason!" Then Joiada the priest ordered the commanders who were in charge of the troops, "Take her out of the temple and kill anyone who tries to rescue her. Do not kill her here in the temple of the Lord." So they seized her and led her out to the gates where the horses enter the palace grounds, and they killed her there. Joiada's religious reforms. Then Joiada made a covenant between himself and the king and the people that they would be the Lord's people. All the people went over to the temple of Baal and tore it down. They demolished the altars and smashed the idols, and they killed Matan, the priest of Baal, in front of the altars. Joiada now put the Levitical priests in charge of the temple of the Lord, following all the instructions given by David. He also commanded them to present burnt offerings to the Lord as prescribed by the law of Moses, and to sing and rejoice as David had instructed. He stationed gatekeepers at the gates of the Lord's temple to keep those who were ceremonially unclean from entering. Then the commanders, nobles, rulers, and all the people escorted the king from the temple of the Lord, and they went through the upper gate and into the palace, and they seated the king on the royal throne. So all the people of the land rejoiced, and the city was peaceful again. Athaliah had been killed. Second Chronicles chapter 24. Joash repairs the temple. Joash was 7 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 40 years. His mother was Zebiah from Beersheba. Joash did what was pleasing in the Lord's sight throughout the lifetime of Joiada the priest. Joiada chose 2 wives for Joash, and he had sons and daughters. Sometime later, Joash decided to repair and restore the temple of the Lord. He summoned the priests and Levites and gave them instructions. "Go at once to all the towns of Judea and collect the required annual offerings so that they can repair the temple of your God. Do not delay." But the Levites did not act right away. So the king called for Joiada the high priest and asked him, Why haven't you demanded that the Levites go out and collect the temple taxes from the towns of Judea and from Jerusalem? Moses, the servant of the Lord, levied this tax on the community of Israel in order to maintain the tabernacle of the covenant. Over the years, the followers of wicked Athaliah had broken the temple of God, and they had used all the dedicated things from the temple of the Lord to worship the images of Baal. So now Joash gave instructions for a chest to be made and set it outside the gate leading to the temple of the Lord. Then a proclamation was sent throughout Judea and Jerusalem, telling the people to bring to the Lord the tax that Moses, the servant of God, had required of the Israelites in the wilderness. So this pleased all the leaders of the people, and they gladly brought their money and filled the chest with it. Whenever the chest became full, the Levites carried it to the king's officials. Then the court secretary and an officer of the high priest counted the money and took the chest back to the temple again. This went on day after day, and a large amount of money was collected. The king and Joiada gave the money to the construction supervisors, who hired masons and carpenters to restore the temple of the Lord. They also hired metal workers who made articles of iron and bronze for the Lord's temple. So the men in charge of the renovation worked hard, and they made steady progress. They restored the temple of God according to its original design and strengthened it. When all the repairs were finished, they brought the remaining money to the king and Joiada. It was used for many utensils for the temple of the Lord, utensils for worship services and for burnt offerings, including ladles and other vessels made of gold and silver. And the burnt offerings were sacrificed continually in the temple for the Lord during the lifetime of Joiada the priest. Joiada lived to the very old age, finally dying at 130. He was buried among the kings in the city of David because he had done so much good in Israel for God and his temple. Joiada's reform reversed, but after Joiada's death, the leaders of Judea came and bowed before King Joash and persuaded the king to listen to their advice. They decided to abandon the temple of the Lord, the God of their ancestors, and they worshipped Asherah poles. And idols instead. Then the anger of God burned against Judea and Jerusalem because of their sin. The Lord sent prophets to bring them back to him, but the people would not listen. Then the Spirit of God came upon Zechariah, son of Joiada the priest. He stood before the people and said, "This is what God says. Why do you disobey the Lord's commands so that you cannot prosper? You have abandoned the Lord, and now he has abandoned you." Then the leaders plotted to kill Zechariah, and by order of King Joash himself, they stoned him to death in the courtyard of the Lord's temple. This was how King Joash repaid Joiada for his love and loyalty by killing his son. Zechariah's last words as he died were, "May the Lord see what they are doing and hold them accountable." The end of Joash's reign. At the beginning of the year, the Armenian army marched against Joash. They invaded Judea and Jerusalem and killed all the leaders of the nation. Then they sent all the plunder back to their king in Damascus. Although the Armenians attacked with only a small army, the Lord helped them conquer the much larger army of Judea. The people of Judea had abandoned the Lord, the God of their ancestors, so judgment was executed against Joash. The Armenians withdrew, leaving Joash severely wounded, but his own officials decided to kill him for murdering the son of Joiada the priest. They assassinated him as they lay in bed. Then he was buried in the city of David, but not in the Roman royal ceremony. The assassins were Josacar, the son of an Ammonite woman named Shemeth, and Jozabad, the son of a Moabite woman named Shomer. The complete story of the sons of Joash, the prophecies about him, and the record of his restoration of the temple of God are written in the commentary of the Book of the Kings. When Joash died, his son Amaziah became the next king. Okay, and with that, I'll be back later with chapter 25.